What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, it's another bonus edition of the What's That Like podcast, and I'm your host, John Knowles. That's right, I said bonus. This is one of our classic rewinds of a past episode that we're packaging up with a new episode. Last Saturday, we put out an episode with Brad Fiori and Shayne Isbell and their adventures through the Keys, Vietnam, and England. And that was really the third interview I had really done with them. And I know in this time with COVID-19 and everybody's just cooped up at home, looking for something to do, looking for something to binge, exercise to, walk with, decided to put out some of these classic episodes of the show and package them up together with a current new episode. We'll have some more in the next couple weeks like this as well, but third part in the trilogy of the Brad and Shayne story. So you'll enjoy this one. This one came to us on November 2nd of last year, 2019, and it really details their journey hiking the Appalachian Trail. Very popular episode when it aired. Some of you probably listened to it before. That's great. If you haven't, go back and listen to the other two from this week. You'll catch up a lot. But the Appalachian Trail, great story, really inspiring. You know, I don't think I've ever got it in me to do it, but if I were a younger man and in better shape, I probably would. So we'll turn you right over to that. But first, you all remember Producer Bob. Producer Bob started his own podcast called the ATA Network Podcast. Brief message from him. We'll turn you right to the episode.
Hey guys, what's going on? Producer Bob here, and I wanted to let you guys know that I've started my very own podcast called the ATA Network Podcast. And on my show, we cover all things racing, tech, and a lot more with a variety of guests and co-hosts. Every weekend, we release a brand new episode, and you can check it out on all major podcast platforms like Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and Libsyn by searching for the ATA Network Podcast. You can also find the show on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/ATA Network.
Brad Fiori, you're back.
I'm back.
You're back on the What's That Like podcast. How's it been? The last time you were here was season 2, episode 6. I think it was August of last year. How's life changed after you were a podcast guest?
Oh, I'm clearly a celebrity now. It feels good to be back in the What's That Like studio, and I've done a lot of traveling over the last year or more, plus since I've been in here, and got some more stories to share with your audience.
That's why we brought you back. You were a big hit the last time. It was a hell of a story. And if you didn't listen to it, go back, season 2, episode 6. And Brad, you circumnavigated is the best way to say it, the entire United States, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that real quick. You know, not to get into the whole journey. How many miles was it?
It was like 11,338 miles. I ended up doing it in 4 months. Averaged about 96 miles a day on the road. It was an incredible journey. Met great people. Basically took the trip from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, rode down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, rode down the east coast of Florida to Key West, around the Gulf of Mexico to South Padre Island, Texas, across to San Diego, from San Diego to Seattle, and then Seattle all the way to Bar Harbor, Maine, across the northern part of the United States, and then back down to Harpers Ferry.
Lots of up and downs. How many days was it?
About 4 months.
4 months?
I forgot how many days it was. It was about 4 months in
total.
Go
back, listen to it. We covered the whole thing on here before, which is why we've got you back. And a big part of that journey, every time and we talked, Shayne Isbell's here with us. Shayne, how are you?
Good.
Good to have you in the studio. You were such a big part of that journey, mostly behind the scenes. You were guiding him along the way. I called you mission control.
Yes.
Making sure that you were there or making sure Brad knew where he was going all the time. He couldn't do what he does without you in probably almost every aspect of life. Is that correct?
Yes, every aspect.
Okay, maybe not that. I think we went a little too far there, but okay.
But Brad, what are you, 50 now? You're a year
50
older
years
than
old.
me. 50?
Yes, 50 years old.
And you started doing this. How do you have time?
Well, I don't have a job. That's a good start. I can train constantly year round. Got an indoor gym I train in, cycling, walking. So I've got plenty of time to do this kind of stuff.
Well, I think the reason you don't have a job is part of the story.
Well, yes.
Yeah. I mean, tell us about that.
Well, through life, I always saved my money, and I knew my life would eventually come to this. I wanted to do more than just work the 9 to 5 every day, and wrote down a few things. And when I turned 48, I just decided to walk away from it
And then enough.
Live a different life.
And how long have you guys been together?
7 years.
7 years?
Yes.
And so that's within the last 7 years. Shayne, what's your reaction when he says, I think I'm ready to stop working? But you're not. You're a lot younger. How old are you?
I'm 45.
You're 45.
Yes.
So you're 5 years younger than him.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm not quitting, right?
No, I can't quit. I have kids. I have responsibility.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
I'm an office manager at a dental office in Alton.
Okay. And you said you got some kids too?
Yes.
Yeah. And how old are they?
Reese is 17 and Madden is 10.
And what do they think of you two and these adventures you do?
They like to travel as well. So they do get to go on some trips with us occasionally. They're not fond of the whole biking and the hiking thing, but they get to go on the ski trips and beach trips.
Beach trips, mainly.
Yeah.
Beach trips, ski trips. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, you're both from the Staunton area, right?
Yes.
You both
Yes.
grew up there. And,
Yes.
and so we all grew up, went up and down the same streets, went to the same school. And I will tell you, Staunton generally doesn't crank out crazy adventurers. So what was in the water that brought you two together to do this stuff?
I don't know. I actually met Shayne, and right before I met her, I was going to ride the MRT, which is the Mississippi River Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met her, she was into running and cycling also. And I was like, hey, I'm going to do this journey. I'm going to go up to Minnesota and ride the MRT down. She's like, can I take along with you? I was like, sure. Always looking for somebody to come along. So kind of just developed. We did that trip together, which was riding from Minnesota basically to St. Louis, about 1,000-mile trip. And it just kind of clicked from there that we were going to start doing these crazy journeys together when possible. And if Shayne couldn't go, I would just go by myself.
Yeah. Sounds like a story that we're going to cover a lot of here.
Right.
But Shayne, so you ran and cycled 1,000-mile journey. Did you ever done anything of any distance like that before?
No.
No? And how was that?
The first trip, it was fun. It was something different.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a great time. I'd never done anything like that. I really wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. There were some good days and bad days, and some days I wanted to throw my bike down and kick and scream and yell. But I enjoyed it. It was, I mean, we've done how many trips since then? So,
and you know, for what we're going to talk about the journeys of the Appalachian Trail on this podcast, and you did part of it. Brad, you finished part of it. It was over a 4-year period. We're going to cover all that stuff as we go. But what all have you done together?
Well, before I met Shayne and we did the MRT, I had whitewater rafted the Colorado River, basically from Glen Canyon Dam down to Lake Mead. I think it was about a 230 mile journey over 10 days, maybe 14 days.
Yeah.
And I was hooked from there. But before that, actually, I had hiked in Peru. I went to Machu Picchu.
Oh, yeah.
And did like a 2-week deal down there. I went to Lima and then flew on to Cusco. And it's kind of a funny story behind that because I booked it online. And that was really my first journey by myself. And I booked it online. And they said, hey, just show up at this hotel in Cusco. Your guide will meet you there. And being kind of naive, I was like, oh, cool, that'll work. So I booked the flight to Cusco, Peru, showed up at the hotel. I was looking for a certain girl, and they're like, oh, she'll be here right away. And I was like, okay. They're like, hey, you can just sit in the lobby. So she showed up. She's like, hey, I'm your guide, and I'll be taking you to around Cusco, and took us to all around surrounding villages, and ended up hiking like probably 80 miles of the Inca Trail. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that was Machu Picchu. So I did that. I rode the Katy Trail 3 different times.
Okay.
Over a period of years. Yeah. And that's about it, really. What other trips have I taken?
And then you did the MRT, and then you guys did
the MRT.
I'm looking on. You've got it's a Facebook page, mile and a half, which is where people can follow your adventures. And I remember when I kind of figured what you've been doing, and was probably partway, I think you went to Iceland or something. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me about that trip, Shayne.
I don't even remember which trip that was. What year? 2014, I think. Summer of 2014.
Yes, I believe so.
We went to Iceland. We flew our bikes over there. We took them with us. I had communicated with a bicycle shop there. One of the bicycle shops here boxed our bikes up. We took them. I talked to a cycle shop on Facebook in Iceland. The people there were great. When we got there, we took a taxi straight to the bicycle shop. They assembled our bikes for us. We rode around just to make sure everything was okay. Stayed at a hostel there. Hung out in Reykjavik for a day, I think. Took off on our bicycle trip. And I don't remember, almost 1,000 miles, right?
Yeah, it was like upper 900 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time of year is this? Summer, I hope.
Yes, this
July.
is July. And then Iceland, that time of year, it's 24-hour daylight. So it was quite a change because you stop at biking maybe at 6 o'clock. We'd put our tent up and it would stay light all night long.
Really?
Yeah, it was 24 hours.
That'll
daylight.
mess with your...
Yes. You'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the
circadian
morning.
rhythms or whatever, yeah.
You'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in the tent and look out and you'd be like, oh, it's morning time. And you'd look at your watch, it'd be like 2 o'clock in the morning. It's just like sunset kind of. It's like, oh, we still got like 4 hours to sleep.
Yes.
So when we were talking the last time you were here, Brad, you had, on your bicycle journey, you had taken a break because you'd said you'd gotten to Seattle and it's snowing. And you called up Shayne and said, hey, what are you doing? And this is the story I remember. And you said, well, let's go. I'll fly home and we'll go hike the Appalachian Trail, right?
Yes.
But that wasn't your first time on the trail. How did you get to the Appalachian Trail? What was your plan when you first started to take this journey?
Well, most of our journey started out with YouTube videos. We'd be watching, I'd watch a YouTube video, just like going to Iceland. We watch a YouTube video and then I sent it to her. I was like, how cool would this be? And then, usually like a week later, I'd be like, hey, I'm booking airline tickets to Iceland. We'll figure it out as we'll get the tickets and then we'll figure out how to get our bikes there and everything. But the Appalachian Trail, when I met Shayne, it was kind of a dream of mine for like 20 years to hike the whole trail. And again, I had asked her, like, we need to go out and maybe hike like a 200-mile section of it, see how we like it. And Shayne's like, I'm in. So actually, my sister was going out to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So we kind of hooked up with her so we could leave our car in one spot. And she dropped us off like 220 miles down the trail, her and her husband. And they just dropped us off at a place called Max Patch Mountain, North Carolina. And from there, we hiked back to our car in Damascus, Virginia. So that's kind of how the Appalachian Trail thing started.
Is that the southern end of the trail?
Yes. The trail actually starts in Springer Mountain, Georgia, which is North Georgia. Runs through about 70 miles of Georgia, and then up through North Carolina, Tennessee, right on the border. Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and then runs up into Virginia, and then continues all the way up into Maine to Mount Katahdin, Maine.
And how many miles long is this?
Oh, believe me, I know. 2,192 mile.
Okay.
On the Appalachian Trail.
So you guys did what, 200, you said 220 miles?
Yes, 220 miles the first time.
Yeah, so you're setting out on this journey, never having hiked anything besides the Inca Trail like that. How do you prepare for that? How do you decide this is what I'm going to do? What did you guys do to get ready?
You actually learn from day one. We thought we had like this great plan together. And I told Shayne we'd hike from Max Patch Mountain to Hot Springs, North Carolina, which is like maybe a 26-mile stretch, I believe. And I said, she's like, why are we going to stop in Hot Springs, North Carolina? And I was like, hey, we're going to have to make adjustments. We think we got a good plan, but I guarantee it's a bad plan. So we did that, and we had a terrible plan. Her pack weighed 45 pounds.
A lot.
And mine weighed 50 pounds. That's heavy. I mean, you really want your pack about 30 pounds. So we got to Hot Springs, North Carolina, and just totally threw everything away that we thought was a great idea and reorganized. And when we left Hot Springs, her pack weighed 25 pounds and mine weighed like 32, maybe 31, 32. So.
And this was what, over maybe 2-3 days?
Just one day,
just
like
a
day and a half. Day and a half, we hiked like 26 miles.
Okay.
Yeah. That turned out pretty good.
What do you keep? What do you get rid of?
Oh, we had like, they call it cold soaking, where you cold soak your food. We had like little stoves and we had heavy food. And what else did we have in our bags? Everything.
The heaviest thing was the food. We just didn't prepare well enough. We brought food that was already had the water in it. And when you hike, you have to take dehydrated food. So we struggled with that a lot. My first day out there was horrible. It was horrible. The first night was horrible. And then the second day we hiked into Hot Springs and I had a knife. I threw the knife out. There was an outfitter there. We just took everything, threw it in a bag, threw out a lot of our food, went and did a new resupply, got different food, threw out the stoves.
Yes,
threw out the stoves. We just went to the outfitter, put everything in a bag and set it out there because they have hiker boxes. And if there's something you don't want, you throw it in the box and another hiker will pick it up. Even if it's, they can eat a meal in town, they'll take stuff and eat that.
So it's whatever you're just providing it for the next hiker,
yes.
whatever they might want.
Yes.
So you're mentioning food. What are you setting out with? What do you eat? What do you take? These are the questions I have.
Definitely light stuff like the instant mashed potatoes you buy at Walmart for $1.
Yeah.
Instant rice, the North rice sites. Yes, those. And it's called cold soaking. So if you cold soak it maybe 30 minutes before you eat, you just put cold water in it and let it soak for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. The rice gets soft. I mean, it's not the best eating in the world, but it's light.
Tuna packs.
Shayne likes ramen, cold soaking ramen noodles. What else?
At home, I will not eat ramen. Out on the trail, I will eat the heck out of ramen.
Yeah. Yes. Tuna, we make tuna wraps, like the wraps. Tortilla wraps.
Shells.
Put tuna in them. Maybe throw some rice in them. There's just all kind of combinations.
Is that enough
with
calories for you? I mean, you're burning through calories. You got to be going through calories like crazy.
I'll tell you what, when we hike, we're really not big eaters. In the morning, when we get up, we might eat a granola bar.
Yeah.
And then we might stop for a snack later in the day and just have trail mix, beef sticks and a cheese stick. Candy bars if we have candy bars.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, once we get into it, get to our campsite or the shelter, what have you, then we really try to eat a big meal in the evening. So we'll have our tuna, mashed potatoes, like he said, you just pour the water in the bag, and then bacon bits. It's a big deal. Throw some bacon bits in there. And that's all we eat. I mean, we don't eat a lot. I don't know how we survive, because when we bike, we eat like pigs.
Yeah.
We don't eat a lot out on the trail when we're hiking.
Yeah.
Eventually it catches up with you though. I'm different because I've only done section hikes. So I've only done a couple weeks at a time or something like that. So after a while though, I think your appetite catches up with you and then you eat more.
It's called hiker hunger.
Yes.
Maybe after 2 weeks, you probably burn the body fat you have on.
Yes.
And then you start getting hiked. Then you're hungry all the time. We eat a lot of candy too. I like gummy worms, like gummies and Snickers bars, anything that's high calorie.
Yeah.
Shayne wears her Apple Watch when we go out.
Yeah.
And we always laugh. It's like inside joke because people post on Facebook like, I walked my 10,000 steps today. Well, we're doing probably 20 plus miles a day. And it usually comes up to about 50,000 steps a day or maybe 60,000 steps a day. And the burning of the calories is usually around 6,000 calories. And probably on a good day, maybe take in 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
So eventually that all catches up to you of the fat burning and almost always dehydrated.
So this was you guys. It was this last year or in 18 or 17 when you did this 220 mile.
That was in
start.
That was in 2016.
Okay.
Then in 2017, I was going to through hike the whole trail by myself, and that's this through hike means one continuous hike from one end to the other. But I started up in Maine, and we talked about this last time.
Yeah,
I started at Mount Katahdin, and then I got trench foot. And actually, I only made it 220 miles that time. So I made it from Mount Katahdin, Maine to Rangeley, Maine. And then I had to call it a hike at Rangeley.
Yeah. You failed.
Yes, absolutely. It's failures all the time on adventures, believe me.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can overcome failure and sometimes you can't. And my feet were they were done.
Yeah.
And it actually took me like 3 months for my feet to heal back.
Really?
Up. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
and then you, if I recall the story correctly, you tried to bike up the Missouri and then turned around on weather, right?
Yes, that was in 2017. 2017 had to turn around weather. That was kind of sort of a failure. I mean, I biked all the way back. That ended up being like a 2,500 mile journey, I believe, up the Missouri River. I made it up into South Dakota and then rode all the way back to Grafton. But it was snowing up in the Front Range of the Rockies then.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that gets us to your big journey. We go back to the circumnavigation by bicycle of the United States. You got done with that in June of last year. You take a couple of months off, and then you're doing other things, and then you decide, hey, let's tackle this trail, right?
Yes. When I left here last time, I told you, man, I got to get back out to the Appalachian Trail. But before then, when I came home from Seattle, that's when me and Shayne went back out. And that's when we hiked that was 2018. We hiked from Springer Mountain, Georgia to Max Patch Mountain, North Carolina. So we put that whole 500-mile, give or take, section together.
Okay.
So we had the whole lower part done. Like, that would be about 25% of the trail.
Okay.
We hiked, that was about almost 500 miles from Springer to Damascus. Then I went out and finished the bike. I finished that, I think, mid-July. Stayed home for a couple months. And October 1st, I went back out. And this time I tackled the biggest state on the Appalachian Trail, which is Virginia, which is about 550 miles. But I started up in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and hiked it southbound back down to Damascus, Virginia. So once I completed that, now I got that whole section done, which is, what would that be? Over 1,000 miles.
Okay.
Plus the 220 I hiked up in Maine. So in 2019, this year, I went back out on May 1st. And I went back out to Harpers Ferry, but this time I walked northbound. So I walked from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia to Rangeley, Maine. And that was 950 some miles.
So you basically did 50% of it this year.
Yes.
But you did the previous 50% kind of in 3 sections.
Yes.
And Shayne, you were there for a good 30% of it, it sounds like, if I've got my math
More
correct.
or less, yes.
Yeah. Tell me about the difference, Brad. The big chunk of it, you're with Shayne. Your
Hiking
buddies.
with Shayne is better.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going with it. I'm sure that's the answer.
Yes.
How hard is that on you to go solo versus with Shayne?
It is tough solo hiking, because when I did the Virginia section, I did the 550 miles. I told Shayne I'm giving myself 30 days. I think with 2 0 days, and 0 days are when you don't hike. I think I did it in 27 days. 3 days I hiked with another guy. The rest of the days I was solo hiking. And out of the 27 days, I probably slept by myself 20 nights. Out of the 27, there was nobody on the trail. It was basically myself. And don't get me wrong, I passed other hikers during the day hikers, weekend hikers. But as far as camping, it was by myself just about every night. So,
well, that's a big question I have too. So when we covered your bike journey, you told me, look, I'm not sleeping under bridges every night.
No.
I'm not going to camp every night. You did a lot of hotels, and you had a good bed. You're not doing that on the AT, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, what's the sleeping like?
I learned that inside your tent, the bugs don't bother you. So I'm a tenter now. And a lot of times I'll put my tent up inside the shelter if there's not a lot of hikers there. Mm-hmm. But it's tenting. There's no hotels at all. No hotel stays. No baths for 3 days at least. Showers, baths.
You stay in hostels.
Yeah. And yeah, we very rarely ever stayed in a hotel. It was always hostel. Something cheap, $30 a night, per person.
Get a shower and
do laundry.
Yep.
Yes.
And get a burger.
Yeah.
Go get some real food and beer.
Yeah, when you go to town, that's when you load up on the calories.
So before we get to town, I want to ask about that too, because I think that's a question I have. But if you're camping on the trail, you said there's a shelter.
Yes.
Describe what the shelter is. You're not just walking and then, well, there's a wide spot or a flat spot next to the trail. Do you camp anywhere, or do you have designated stops you're supposed to hit, or is it can hit? How does that work?
Yeah, in the national parks, they have designated areas. So you've got to walk from campsite to campsite or shelter to shelter. There's no what they call stealth camping. But other areas, you can stealth camp. So if you just see a flat area, you can just drop your tent right there. Now, most of the time, we walk to shelters just for the communication with other hikers. There's other hikers there. It's time to shoot the shit and stuff like that. But the shelters, they're just basically lean-tos, completely open in the front. And they do come in different variations up and down the trail. Some of them are really nice. Other ones, not so nice. But they do provide shelter.
What's a nice shelter look like?
Oh, almost like a log cabin, basically like a double-decker log cabin. Maybe it's open in the front. Some of them have, the doorways are a little less open. Keeps the wind off you. Keeps the weather off you. In Massachusetts, very nice shelters. I mean, they're top of the line there. They were probably the best on the whole trail.
Okay. And what's a bad shelter look like?
Most of the shelters, the sections that I've hiked, they're just lean-tos with a floor. That's it. And then you just throw your sleeping pad out with your sleeping bag, and that's it. Then you just sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full of mice.
Yes.
Full of mice.
Well, they're
And
looking for
porcupine.
every scrap of food they can find.
And,
right?
and people drop food, so they're full of mice.
Some
lot of
people
them,
leave candy bar wrappers in their
Yes, I've
pack
had
and-
a mouse chew through my pack before. I had to get it fixed.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
And actually, I heard it chewing through there, and I didn't think it was my backpack. I thought it was somebody else's. I was like, man, that mouse is really getting after whatever's left in that person's pack. And I woke up the next morning, it was my pack. I had left like a Snickers wrapper in there. No Snickers bar, but the Snickers wrapper. I got like a quarter-size hole in my pocket.
You're supposed to clean out all of your food. You're supposed to actually, when you get to the shelters or the campsites, you're supposed to hang your bear bags, which is your food bag. And you're supposed to hang that away from the shelter. We do get to hang our packs in the shelter. They have hooks in the shelter where you can hang your packs. And then some people do forget food in the pockets and what have you. So
Yeah.
mice are a big problem.
When you get farther up in the northeastern part of the United States, porcupines are a problem.
Really?
They literally eat the shelters. They eat the wood on the shelter. You can see everywhere where they've like come up at night and just eat the wood.
So, were you ever scared of any wildlife?
No.
No. I've actually walked up on a bear, though, and 2 cubs.
Yeah.
In the Shenandoah National Park. I crossed the road. I come around a bend, and everybody told me on the trailer, like, if you're going to see a bear, it's in Shenandoah National Park. And I come around a bend, and actually the bear and the 2 cubs were walking in the same direction I was. So I actually came up on them, and I was like, oh, shit. And about the time I said that, she sniffed real loud, like snorted. And I stopped. She turned around and looked at me. And one thing about black bears, they're really skittish. So she took off with one of the cubs and went over a ridgeline, but the other cub went right up a tree next to the trail. So I was like, oh, total photo opportunity here. So I got pictures on my page.
Yeah,
of the cub.
seeing that, yeah.
Yeah, I took a picture and then scurried down the trail because they say don't get between a black bear and a cub, But somebody else also told me along the trail that she'll give up one of her cubs. Like if you're a predator, she'll give one of her cubs up if the predator wants to chase it, but she'll take one cub with her.
Really?
And that's what she did. She ran off with one cub, and the other cub went up a tree, and I never saw her again. I didn't hang around. But,
Sure, get out. Yeah. Do you take bear spray? Do you?
People do,
Yeah.
but I've learned just over the years, black bears really ain't going to bother you. When they do bother you, is because they've been eating human food. The wild ones that haven't ate out of a dumpster, human food,
Yeah.
they'll leave you alone.
Is that why you like hiking together? Because one of you's faster than the other? Because, they always say you don't have to outrun a bear. You just have to outrun your friend.
It's what you're saying. Every man for himself.
Every man for himself. I always tell her that. Like, we come across a bear. It's every man for himself. You better run. Yeah.
There have been shelters walking along the trail that we've come up to where they'll have signs that you can't stay there because bear activity. So they'll close down the shelter for the night, and you just have to hike on or try to find the next camping spot.
So how do you know? I mean, do you have a map?
Yes.
Do you have a book and you go, okay,
Yes.
I know there's another shelter in a mile. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me what.
So we always use a book called the AWOL, and it's just for the Appalachian Trail. It tells you from southbound to northbound, or it flips southbound to northbound, whichever way you're going. And it has miles on there. It has where the shelters are, how many miles to the shelter, water supply. They have springs out there where you can get water, camping sites, where the next town is, what's in that town, where the hostels are. Some hostels are in town. Some hostels are right out on the trail. How far do you have to walk to get to the hostel? How far do you have to walk to get off trail to the next shelter? If it's too far, we won't go. We'll just, if it's like 0.5 off the trail, sometimes we'll just keep going. We won't even go stop.
Because there's another trail or another shelter probably
Yes.
within that half mile.
It just depends.
Yeah. You don't want to burn that whole mile there and back.
Yes.
Believe me, that's big on hikers. You always add it up in your head. You're like, man, I got to walk 0.2 off trail. That's 0.2 down, 0.2 back. So that's 0.4. That's almost a half. I'm not going to do it.
We're going.
I'm not walking. We're just going to go. Even for water
Yeah.
sources, if I got enough water, I'll just keep walking till the water's like right on the trail or just off the trail.
Yeah.
So we plan ahead.
Yes.
Every morning when we get up, we have a really good idea how many miles we plan on hiking that day. How far can we make it until we get to the next water source? When you get to a shelter or the water source, you fill everything up. before you leave that next day. And then you just, we have it already planned out how many miles typically we're hiking that day and where we're going to end up.
And you get up crack of dawn, or what just when you wake up do you go? I mean, are you on a schedule?
Yeah, we're early birds.
Yes.
We get up before light and usually are out at first light.
Yeah.
We don't like to hike in the dark. And a lot of times you don't want to be the first one down trail because there's a lot of spider webs.
Yes.
Somebody clear the path. But most of the time we are that people that are first ones down trail. We see so many people that just hang around, they fix breakfast, but everybody hikes their own hike, Some people don't take off till 9 o'clock. We're early birds. As soon as the sun's up, we're down trail.
And a typical hike day for you said is about 20?
20 miles, yeah. I would say average.
What's scary out there? What are you worried about?
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. No.
I've never worried one time. Even spending the night, like when I just did the 900, I spent most nights by myself. I hiked by myself every day. I was never worried.
The people out there are great. The community is great. Everyone is out there for the same reason. Just to hike, enjoy the environment, enjoy the surroundings. We pass people along the way. We typically do our own hike, and there's a lot of times where I might even be way up ahead of him. He usually doesn't get ahead of me. I'm usually up ahead of him. Most days we do carry on a conversation. It passes the time whenever we hike together. Other times we just do our own hike. We do our own thing. We pass people along the way. We stop and talk to people, carry on little conversation, just take a quick break.
Where are you from?
Yeah. We've met a lot of great people on the trail. People don't scare us at all. We haven't really seen any animals that have scared us. It's awesome. It's just a great environment.
Any precarious parts of the trail where you're like, shit, don't fall down that side?
New Hampshire.
Yeah?
Yes, New Hampshire and parts of Maine are really tough. Maybe I would say a section from Mount Moosilauke to where I left off in Rangeley. It's like a 150-mile stretch. It's really tough. And there's some parts where you're walking down the trail, you're like, this can't be the trail. It's not the trail. Because it's like vertical. You're climbing with your hands and feet to get up. And there's a couple spots where you literally have to take off your backpack to squeeze through the rocks.
Really?
Yes. So it's a little different hiking up there. It's kind of, I don't want to say mountain climbing because that would give everybody the wrong impression. But it's not like just, trail hiking. There's some pretty tough sections up in there.
I should have asked this before, but how did the App Trail come together? Like, it's obviously a fairly continuous path, right?
Yes.
I mean, obviously it might, cut off a road or a town and you cut from here over to there. But what was the genesis of somebody stringing this all together? Is that something that you would know?
I don't want to give the wrong information, but if you Google it, there's a guy who just had a vision, like this East Coast trail, a continuous trail. And it's changed over the years because I think it was developed in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
The guy had the idea and they put it together. And what's weird about it, I think from the 30s till maybe the late 60s or 70s, only like 10 people completed it. It's real low. And people can Google that. You can get all the information. I may be not giving correct information there.
We won't hold that against you.
It's really low.
For 99.9% of the people listening to this, they wouldn't have a friggin' clue difference.
Right.
Because none of us have ever tried it. But.
Yes. And the attrition rate on the trail, I think it's as high as maybe 75, 80% of people who ever set foot to walk the whole trail never finish it.
Yeah.
It's really high. So I'm kind of proud that I finished it. It took sections, but I did finish it.
2192, you said, and it's not an easy walk.
No.
It's almost, I got to think, there's the vast majority of this thing, it could, depending on grade, but it's either uphill or downhill all the time, right?
Yes. I couldn't tell you how many mountains I climbed and Shayne's climbed. It's just continuous up and down. And
is that part of it? It's cresting peaks of mountains?
Yes. You're basically walking along the Appalachian.
The ridge of the Appalachian Mountains, yeah. When you get up in Pennsylvania, that's probably the flattest area. A lot of the hikers say, oh, man, when you get to Virginia, it's flat. No, Virginia's not flat. It's probably more mountainous than any other area, many other areas on the trail. But when you get to West Virginia, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's not bad, a little rocky, but a lot of flat areas because I was doing maybe 18 miles before lunchtime, so it's pretty flat. How many pairs of shoes did you go through?
I think I ended up going through the 4 years, probably 6 pairs.
Yeah.
6 pairs of shoes.
And how many you take with you? Just one? What you got on your feet?
One
Yes.
pair of shoes and one pair of flip-flops.
That's it.
That's
yeah,
it.
because you're wanting to roll light.
Yes.
And if you need something along the way, the AWOL book, is that what we're saying?
We'll tell you where to go.
Probably
Yes.
there's an outfitter coming up or someplace to go.
When we started hiking, we used the AWOL book, but now they have an app that you can use offline, which we've started to use now, which is called
Gut hooks.
Gut Hooks.
All right, you mentioned offline. Now I would have went, is there signal out there?
No, you can use it offline. It's amazing. A bunch of the guys that we met out on the Appalachian Trail, they told us about it.
Yeah.
So we're sold on that now. So we don't have to buy the book anymore. You just purchase Gut Hooks and then whichever trail you're doing at that time.
And it'll update if something changes.
Yep.
So
Yes.
you've always got the most recent.
Yeah, they check with all of the hostels, all of the businesses, everything out there. They check all the sources and everything every year before they put out the new AWOL book or Gut Hook.
James Labonte and Labonte Photography are more than just photographers. They're artists. They take great pride in capturing images that you'll be proud to place on your walls for many years for your friends and guests to admire. He's more than just someone with a fancy camera, lights, and software. He'll spend time with you, get to know you, and capture real and authentic portraits of you. For senior photos, special events, weddings, or hey, just some fun family photos you'll treasure forever. Go to Labonte Photography on Facebook or LabontePhoto.com. Say cheese! Is HGTV on in your house all the time like it is in mine? Is a home improvement project on your wish list? If yes, call my friend Gabe Dexheimer at Dexco Home Renovations. Gabe and his crew recently did a great job for my family kitchen. They can do a great job on your next project too. Indoors, outdoors, decks, kitchens, baths, you name it. No jobs are too big or small. If you have an idea or just want a professional eye to help you realize your dream, call Gabe today at 618-420-1742 for a no-obligation consultation. He helped my family realize a dream kitchen, and he can help all of you too. Let's get it done. You mentioned when you'd want to go off trail, and those are probably good days. You mentioned go get a beer, get a burger.
Best days ever.
Yeah. I
Like the whole day we're hiking, we're like, we're going to town today. I am going to eat a burger and I'm going to order cheese sticks and I'm going to eat all of this food and I'm going to have 5 beers. What are you eating?
I'm getting Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is the greatest trail beer ever. A lot of people won't agree with that, but I love
disagree.
it. For some reason, Pabst Blue Ribbon just hits the spot on the trail.
Yeah. Did you guys went close to Asheville, North Carolina,
Yeah.
right? But that's probably pretty far down the trail to walk. Is that's like there's more breweries there per person than anywhere.
It's like 31 miles from Hot Springs, North
Okay.
Carolina. So you're walking through the town of Hot Springs, North Carolina. I actually saw the sign. It's like 31 miles from
Yeah.
there. That's a little too far.
No, so I'm going to play dumb here. I've been to Gatlinburg, up Klingman's Dome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the trail goes right through there, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's the only part I've even ever seen. So I'm a total novice here, which brings me to my next question. You mentioned the attrition rate. How many people did you run out to that you're like, dude, you have no business being out here?
I'll tell you what.
When we hiked from Springer Mountain to Max Patch, how many did we pass?
A lot of people that I give them kudos though. They were out there and they were trying it. It's hard. It's not easy. It is not easy. You have good days. You have bad days. There's a lot of people out there though that a lot of people actually go out there. Honestly, people that we talk to just to lose weight.
Yeah.
They go out there to hike to lose weight.
Yes. Like I said, my feet have failed me before, but we were down in Springer, and I don't want to say like we're the professional hikers or nothing like that, but we had pushed out like 100 miles in 5 days, and we were catching up to people that were on the trail for 3 weeks. 3 weeks to do 100 miles.
Really?
Yes.
But that's what you're saying. Everybody's hiking their own hike.
Yes.
And they're 100 miles in 3 weeks. It's the pace they want to go.
Yeah.
Some people only hike, but some people have more time than what, we do. We go out there, we have a time frame, and we have to get back.
Well,
So
you do anyway.
I do, yes, because
Yeah.
I have responsibility.
Yeah.
But, we have a time frame, so we have to get back. So there's days where we just have to push it and we have to hike as many miles as we can. There are some people out there who, I don't know how they do it, only hike like 8 miles a day. They might start later, they end early. We like to hike majority of the day. We don't like to finish up early. We don't want to finish by 2, 3 o'clock. There's nothing to do. So we like to hike usually till 4, 5, 6 o'clock, just depending on the terrain that day, of course, how many climbs we had to do. And then as soon as we get to camp, we set up camp, whether we're in the shelter or tenting, we fix our food, we're done, we're out. So we're usually in bed by 7 o'clock. It's still light outside.
Yeah, and you're out pretty quick, I'm sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's quiet.
It's easy.
There's a thing out on the trail. It's called hiker midnight. And that means you're in bed sleeping by 8:30. And usually if you're even camping with other people and you're just around shooting the shit, everybody knows about 8 o'clock. It's bedtime.
Yeah.
You know, you'll just see people starting to fade away.
Well, there's no
to their
power
tent.
out there, is there?
No.
So, I mean, after dark, it might as well be midnight.
It's dark. It's really dark. I mean, just to go to the bathroom is a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be in the tent and Shayne will be like, "You got the flashlight?" I'm like, "I don't know. It was in that pocket the last I saw it, And she's just like, "Well, get it. I don't know where it's at. It's over there, So once it's dark.
Yes.
I don't know which one of you to ask this question to, but you go out there, you beat yourselves up all day. Is this a romantic trip at all for you?
No.
No?
Absolutely not.
No.
No?
There's no romance going on the trail.
We smell so bad. It's horrible. We don't even typically sleep in the same tent.
Yeah.
We usually take our own tent, just depending on the trip. But the single tents are a lot lighter to carry. And we just stink so bad at the end of the day. It's horrible. We don't even want to be around each other. And once you get into the tent, that's why the shelters are great to sleep in, because you're not enclosed. So you don't smell your stench. But once you get into the tent, it's almost unbearable. You smell your own stench. It's horrible. Horrible.
Oh, that sounds like the best part of this whole discussion. I'm kind of glad I asked that question. This is where everybody on this part of the thing was going, this sounds like a great journey.
Yes.
We should do this. See, so this is the joy that the What's That Like podcast bring you. I wanted you to know what's that like.
Yes.
That's
There's no romance on the Appalachian Trail.
Tell me some funny story. Tell me a funny story. You met somebody and you're like, it could have been a cool hiker, somebody that helped you out along the way, somebody that was totally nuts. Give me something here.
I can tell you a couple stories. You're talking about, like Shayne was talking about, trusting people. When I'm out there, hitchhiking's my favorite thing. I mean, when I'm by myself, I feel no...
Isn't that cheating a little bit?
No, hitchhiking into town, not down the trail.
Yes.
Like if I come to and I got a resupply and say the town is maybe 3 or 4 miles off the trail, I'll just throw my finger up and hitchhike. And that you meet some real characters that way. And I really haven't met a character, but I've always gotten a ride. I was in Waynesboro, Virginia. And I just come out of the Shenandoahs. I'm out of food. And Hurricane Michael was moving up the East Coast. This is in 2018. So I had to get to Waynesboro, and I had this great plan because I only had like 30 days to do it. So I come out of the Shenandoahs, and within 2 seconds, a lady pulls up. And, here, I'm a 50-year-old guy, maybe a 40-year-old lady pulls up, and she's like, "Hey, where are you going?" I was like, going into Waynesboro. She's like, "Hop in, I'll give you a ride." I mean, she don't know me. I don't know her. I just hop in. But then coming back out of town, I caught another hitchhike. And Hurricane Michael was moving in. And I thought, I got like a day and a half before it gets here. It's going to be a tropical storm. It can't be that bad. It's going to be downgraded to tropical storm. So I walked one day, like 20 miles. And then I thought, I'm going to walk half a day. I'll make it to the shelter. And all will be well with the world. Well, I made it probably about 5 miles from the shelter and it started raining. And it was like a monsoon rain.
Well, it was. It was a tropical storm.
It was a tropical storm. It started raining, and I mean, the wind was blowing probably like 60 miles an hour. And I was like, okay, today I'm going to die. Today is the day I die. There's no place to go. All you can do is keep walking. So I was soaking wet. And when they say thing is your gear is rainproof, that's only rainproof to a certain extent because I was soaking wet.
Yeah.
And I ended up making it to the shelter, and I'm solo. I'm by myself. It's pouring down rain. I pull out my phone, and actually I'm on top of a mountain, which is really not a great idea. And the trees are just bending like crazy. And I've never seen it rain like that before. And I pulled out my phone. I was like, what if I call Shayne, see what's up? So I call her. I got the service. I call Shayne. She's like, "Hey, how's the day going?" "Well, I'm sitting in a shelter now. It's raining like crazy. The wind's blowing." She's like, "You all right?" I was like, I'd probably make it through the night, I guess. You got to picture this. I'm curled up in this shelter back in the far corner because the wind is just whipping the rain in the front of the shelter. I'm curled up in my sleeping bag in the back corner by myself, and I'm thinking, why do I do this shit for? I can be at home just laying on the couch.
And he's like, keep your phone by you just in case something happens. what do you want me to do?
Just document that he died. Yeah.
That was
Okay, I know which shelter you're at. I'll send somebody to rescue you.
Yeah, there's no place to go. I mean, it's just, you just got to.
Was that
bear
your
it.
toughest day?
Oh, was that my tough? Nah, I would say my toughest day was just recently up in New Hampshire. I mean, where I was cranking out 20 to 30 mile days, it all fell down to like 16 mile days or 15. Or if I did do a 20 mile day, I spent like from 4 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night walking, just nonstop, no
Because
stop.
it was hard.
Yes, it was
the
hard.
terrain was hard.
Where I can usually time myself. I usually do 3 miles an hour. I may have been doing like 1.2 miles an hour. You know, it takes forever. And you look down at your map, and I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. It's just, it's long.
And when we hike together, you know, usually the stupid stuff we talk about out there, it's crazy. I've learned so much history from him from hiking on the trail. But it makes the time go by faster when we're hiking together and we're talking, even running into other people. There's days where we'll hike. We've met so many people. I'm trying to think. Ohio and Steve, we met the 7-Eleven in Ohio. We spent several days with them. We don't actually hike with the people, but once we meet up with somebody and we kind of hit it off and, you know, we're all having a good time, we'll start, you know, ask them, how many miles you guys doing today? Most of those people, we could do the same miles. So they're like, hey, we're going to this shelter tonight, blah, blah. Oh, so are we. So we'll see you guys tonight. And then we hike back and forth all day long, you know.
Yeah.
And then Old Drum, we hiked with him, some old guy who's hiked it several times now, hasn't he?
Old Drum, that's his name?
Yeah,
he's an
everybody
old guy.
has trail names out there. You get a trail name.
Well, I need to know.
Oh, I'm Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew?
Yes.
And mine's Dos Equis.
Yeah.
Dos Equis. There you go.
Not for the beer, really, but the commercial.
The most interesting man in the world.
The most
Yes.
interesting man.
That's pretty fitting.
Well, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, the guy named Ohio actually gave me that one day. So
He named both of us.
Yes, he actually
Yes.
did. He named both
Yes.
of them. And you can accept it. You can change your name. It's going to be kind of hard for me to change mine because it's tattooed on my arm. So I guess,
Oh, you got a tattoo now.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, I got a whole arm full of tattoos.
Well, but you had to memorialize that name. Yeah.
yes, I'll never
Yeah.
change it. I like it. When you tell the story, it's really good. But the most interesting guy I've ever met, actually, I met him in Virginia this last October in 2018. I had hiked by myself, like I said, every day. And it was about 3 days from Damascus from finishing that section. And I come across this guy named Breezer. He was just an interesting character. He started talking to me, and I was like, you know what? I've got plenty of time here. I'm going to be in Damascus early. I'll just hike with this guy for the next few days. And his story kind of made me feel really good about my life.
Yeah.
He literally, I don't want to tell the whole story because we'll be here all night, but he literally just kind of gave up on life, you know? And he was driving around in an old beat up Honda Accord, and one day he just decided he was going to go buy a backpack and change his life, you know? So he parked his car in a Lowe's parking lot and just walked from there to the Appalachian Trail. No cell phone, no communication with nobody, nothing. I mean, just no map.
And he had no idea about the Appalachian
yeah,
Trail.
no idea.
He didn't know what a shelter was. He didn't know anything about the trail. He just went out there and started walking.
Yeah, it just started walking and just kind of.
You met him on this journey, or this was how he started, like years before or something?
Oh, I met him on this journey.
That's what he did on this journey?
Yes, I met him in October of 2018. He had been out maybe 3 weeks or a month, and he had just basically gave up on life like 3 weeks or a month before.
Really?
And I met him, and I didn't have to talk for like 3 days. He told me his life story.
What happened to him? You still in contact?
Yeah, I have his phone number. I'll tell you, we ended up going to Damascus. I bought the guy dinner, and then we went out to dinner the next night together. I told him, he didn't have no cell phone at the time. I said, hey, here's my number. If you need anything, just give me a call, man. And he knew I had biked around the country. So we're eating dinner. He's like, if you're ever going to hide out somewhere, where would you go? I was like, man, that's a great question. I was like, I would go to Northern California. It just seems like people don't give a shit who you are out there. You just be your own person. So here's my phone number. I gave it to him. So the last time I had contact with him, I get a text. He's like, hey, it's Breezer. I got a phone now. I go, can I call you? He's like, yeah, call me. We got to catch up. So I call him. We start talking. I was like, man, if you don't want to tell me, but I'd really like to know, where are you at? He's like, oh, man, I got a van. I'm living in Northern California. I was like, well, you took my advice. He's like, yeah, man, it's pretty cool out here.
Shayne, you could see it. I wrote it right down right here. I said, have you inspired others on your journey?
I guess.
And I got to say, the answer is probably yes here, huh?
Yes. And I still have his number. I really need to call the guy. And I don't know whatever happened to him. Last time I talked to him, he was living in Northern California. I really should try his number. And actually, we had made plans on the phone call. I was going to go back out and do the final section. He's like, man, I'll tag along with you, because somewhere in his life story, he was a triathlete, and he looked like a triathlete. He had that body style, that slender, tall body style. And we just never hooked up again. We just, I just kind of let it go, and I let him do my own thing. From some of his stories, I wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into. Wow. But then he told me, he's like, hey, if I ever wanted to hang out, I could, if I could make my way out to Northern California, I could hang out in the van with him for a while. That's a true story.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how you could top that story.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Let's wrap up. I mean, when I think about what you did, and I think about the Appalachian Trail, I think it's one of those things a lot of people have obviously heard of, and you go, "Oh, I'm going to go do this." Doesn't sound like it's a touristy thing at all.
No.
Except maybe at the edges where people just maybe they're weekending it. I'm going to hike a little 5-mile section or something, right?
Right.
Yes.
If once you get dieharding, it's not for the faint of heart, is what I'm hearing.
I always tell people about the Appalachian Trail. I'm no expert on it, but I always tell people, the few people that ask me about it, they're like, man, I'd like to do that. I was always telling them, man, just go out for a weekend or a week, do a 100-mile section of the trail. See if you like it.
That was the question I had, Brad. If I were going to go out for a week and do 100 miles, or I shouldn't say a week, if I was going to do 100 miles, where should I go?
I would go to Shenandoah National Park, which is...
Bears.
Yeah, bears. There's bears there. But it's outside of D.C. It's a very well-groomed part of the trail, but you still get the beauty of the trail. And it's I don't want to say flat, but the trail's well-groomed. You can get off at many points because the Blue Ridge Parkway runs through there. Through there. So it's like a 110-mile section. That's where I would go. And if you don't want to do the 110 miles, you can park your car in one spot and walk down to another spot. And if you're into it, hitchhike back. Somebody will pick you up. If they see a backpack on you, they'll give you a ride back to your car. But that's the section.
I think I heard you mention this on the last show we did. There's people that have created, it's like Appalachian Trail Uber, right? Like there's people that will, you park a car where you want to finish and they'll drive you to where you want to go. You said your sister did that, but people do this as a business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
People run businesses 6 months out of the year.
Well, we did that when we did Springer to...
Max Patch to Hot Springs. We ended up meeting that couple. That's what they did. They had 2 cars, and it was just a cash business. And they just
Perfect business.
Yes, cash business, and just ran hikers from the trail to Walmart to get something to eat, and then back to the trail. And it was just like a $10 cash thing. And they give you their cell phone number, and they'd be like, hey, I'll drop you off at Walmart. I got to go run these other 2 people. I'll be back in a half hour to pick you up. I'll pick you up out front. So you just wait there, and, they'll call you, text you, like, hey, I'm running 5 minutes late. You're out hiking. There's really no timetable. But yeah, people do that. Like I said, I'm a hitchhiker, and I've learned to just ask people. I was like in Lehigh Gap, Pennsylvania. I had to go to the grocery store. So I walked like 3 miles to the grocery store. And I was like, man, that was a really shitty 3 miles. It was. So I'm sitting outside the grocery store, and actually another hiker had come in, and he's like, how are you getting back to the trail? I was like, as soon as I see the most vulnerable person walk up, I'm going to ask them for a ride. And a couple of people had come up, but they were really old ladies. They're like, you hiking the trail? I was like, she's probably not going to give us a ride. And then I see a younger girl come up, 2 younger girls. It was a mom and daughter. I was like, hey, give a couple hikers a ride back to the trail. And they're like, absolutely. So they pulled up. They're like, throw your packs in. We'll give you a ride. So me and the other hiker popped in the thing, and they gave us a ride back to the trail.
Is it easier to get a ride when you're together or when you're by yourself? Because you might not be a psycho if you're with a lady here.
When me and Shayne are together, I put Shayne out on the road.
He throws me out on the street.
Well, get out there, blind.
Right. I put her out on the road, or I'm just like, hey, that guy over there getting gas. Just go up and talk to him and
he makes me then go talk to different people and try to get a ride. Oh yeah, by the way, my friend needs a ride too.
I just kind of hang out in the shadows, and then when she confirms get the ride, he gives me the old wink. I come out like, hey, did you get us a ride? She's like, yeah, he's gonna give us a ride. The guy's like, oh man.
Well, that's good. Then it protects you.
We have a lot of fun.
That's right.
It is funner to hike with another person when you're solo. Like I've done over half the trail, way more than half, 3/4 of the trail solo by myself. You meet people, but there's just not that camaraderie with another person. And when you go to town, when I go to town, I usually go out to eat by myself, and got Shayne with me. At least it's somebody to talk to, I guess.
Sure.
Believe me, we've talked all day long. We don't talk at the end of the day.
Well, you're forcing calories down your
exactly.
throat. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, if you reflect back, it's something you wanted to do for a lot of years. You did it. What did you get out of it? What did you take away? Besides sore feet.
yeah, that was the one. I never went out there. I've met more people that were out there that had to find themselves, or they were out there on some kind of journey,
escaping a
escaping their life. And I met a lot of people like that. I was just out there for the challenge. I mean, I saw the trail on PBS 20 years ago, and I was just like, I'm going to do that, and I did it. I just like put my mind to it, and just like I did it. I just wanted to do it for myself, and the stories just came with the journey, meeting the people, and it gave me a new outlook on life too. You and I've said this many times in my post, and I think I've said it on your show. You watch the news and everybody's bad. It's bad. But if you go out of your box and you get out to the people, you find out that people are pretty cool.
Well, when you're out there, nobody gives a shit if you're a Trump guy, a Democrat. There's no politics. It's just, hey, where are you going to be next? Like you said.
Yes.
Hope you make it. Safe travels. Good. What do you say? Good hike to somebody. What's
Happy trails.
Happy trails.
Happy
That's what
trails.
you
Happy
say.
trails or see you down trails.
Yeah.
See you down trail.
I actually had a guy ask me that one day. I was passing him. We started talking, and out of the blue, he's like, I'm not supposed to ask you this. He goes, did you vote for Trump? And I was like, I'm just not going to give you any response. We're out here on the trail, and I'm going to let that go.
Yeah.
Another thing we learned too on the trail is you never shake hands because you don't get to wash your hands. So the fist bump is what you do out on the trail.
See, this is where I would be. I'm a germaphobe myself.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You never shake hands. You always fist bump.
So Shayne, he finished it. You've got 60, 70% to go.
Yes.
She has options.
I do have options. Guys that we've met out on the trail, they're still hiking the same sections that I need to hike. So I have options to go out there with them if I can work it out.
You're not going back, Brad?
No, he won't.
No?
Can I cuss on your show?
You had 3 or 4 times already.
No, it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard.
I've asked him if he will go back out and finish it with me. Like, this was the plan. We were going to section hike together and do the whole thing together over several years. He ditched me and he finished it by himself.
So you had to go to work.
Yes.
Like pay for a house.
Exactly.
Stuff he doesn't do.
Right. Exactly.
Is that what it is?
Commitments.
So,
Yeah.
I'm like, when I'm not traveling, I always call myself Mr. Mom. I do the housework.
takes care of the dogs. And
Cleans the house. I cut the grass.
it's nice when he's home.
So obviously you're here. We're talking here in Mount Olive. How long have you been home?
I've been home since England.
Too long.
Yeah, way too long.
You're ready for him to
England.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got home from England in early August, late July.
Early August.
Yeah, late July. So I've done nothing since then.
You got the itch?
Oh my God, I got the itch. I was actually online today, trying to get my permit to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and they opened up the permit bidding at like 10:30 Pacific time. I got on there at 10:30 and I was already like 7,800 and some person in line. So I missed out on the first permit application.
So say that again. At the Pacific
Crest Trail.
Crest Trail. Tell me about that.
Well, it's something I got planned to do in March if I can get a permit. And the Pacific Crest Trail, it's the western sister trail, basically the Appalachian Trail, but it runs up the Pacific Crest. It runs from the Mexican border near Campo, California, maybe 50 miles east of San Diego, and runs all the way up to the Canadian border in Washington. Follows basically the Sierra Mountain Range, goes through Northern California, all of Oregon, up to Washington, across the Cascades. It's 2,650 miles.
2,600
in 50 miles.
In 50 miles.
If I can do it, which I hope, I got to get a permit, which it's going to play itself out. The permit process has just got to play itself out.
Did you need a permit to do the AT?
No.
But the Pacific, is that much more popular?
It's in California. It's really regulated.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a regulated trail.
No, the Appalachian Trail, you can go out, you can hike whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not true. We do need a permit to hike through the Smokies.
Yes. I mean, but the permits, like to go through the Smokies, like she's talking about, you just get online and download. There's no permit process.
Yes.
There's no limit.
You just have to get a piece of paper to hike through the Smokies. Yeah. That's it.
The Pacific Crest is
easy.
Is a really regulated by permits now. And they've been doing that for the last 3 years, probably. There's 50 permits per day they give away, but there's a real limited amount to the hiking season. And you're basically talking, at best, maybe mid-March to June 1st. That's it. If you don't leave by then, you're probably going to hit snows in the Cascades. If you leave too early, you're probably going to hit heavy snow in the Sierras. So you really got to time it out perfectly.
How long do you think it'll take you?
5 months.
5 months. And you want to do it through?
Yes.
Obviously, there's been other. You just mentioned England. You guys went to Vietnam. Yes. We're going to have you back and talk about those conquests as well.
Yes.
But in the meantime, if you want to review the Appalachian Trail adventure or what you've done in the past, anywhere along the way, the cycling adventure, you guys need to write a book or something. Jeez, you need a better blog or something. Do your own podcast, for God's sake. But where can they find you guys online? Tell me where they can find you online.
Well, they can find us at Mile and a Half.
On Facebook.
On Facebook. It's a private group. I got to accept you to the group, but I'll accept anybody that wants to follow it. Yeah. I just kind of put it that way so I can kind of control it a little bit.
One final question. When you're about halfway through this journey up the Pacific Crest Trail, you going to hit up Breezer?
I don't know if I could live in a van in California. I actually was walking today. All I do is train, but I was actually walking today and I was like, I ought to call him. Maybe I'll call him tomorrow, see what's up. I don't even know if he has a phone anymore. Who knows? But I will.
Guaranteed he's never heard the podcast. We'll talk about that.
No, that's for sure.
Brad, Shayne, thank you for coming on. We loved having you.
Thank you.
It was great being here.
All right, there you had it. Part 3 of the Brad and Shayne trilogy for the week. Easter weekend this weekend. I hope you all have a good day. Today is Good Friday on post day. Hope you can make the best of it. I know it's going to be a tough one. It's a tough one for us too. We can't get the whole family together. We're going to do it virtually. I'd encourage you all to do the same. Stay apart, wash your hands, flatten the curve. Love you all. Peace out. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like Podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!